get your fucking ass up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
That's so true.
You have to surround yourself with people that want to work.
I really want to talk about this whole nobody wants to work anymore narrative that certain people are trying to push in the media, because it's really full of shit, and it does not have to do with the government stimulus checks that were sent out during COVID, because you know who was sent much more money during COVID to try and help them out? Businesses who received PPP loans. Way more money was sent out to them than to the average worker. I just want to have like a discussion about labor and debunk this whole nobody wants to work anymore idea. It's not that people don't want to work anymore. It's that people are no longer settling or willing to settle for terrible jobs and working for terrible employers. That's the change. There has been a lot of talk about like the past year there being the Great Resignation, lots of people leaving their jobs, and I think a lot of this shift in mindset and shift to leave certain jobs and find new ones, because it's not that everyone is leaving their jobs and getting unemployment. They are finding new jobs at different companies. A lot of this has been brought on by the pandemic, where companies were forced to treat their workers differently. In many ways, it was forcing them to treat them worse. This being the case for retail and food service employees, or being forced to treat your employees better in the case for a lot of white-collar jobs by allowing remote work. And both of these things have changed now, because people who were in food service and retail type jobs, this is, I think, the strongest place where I'm seeing business owners trying to push the story of no one wants to work anymore. Like restaurant owners and shop owners are trying to push this. It's just that no one wants to work for you because you don't treat your employees like they are human. During the pandemic, a lot of employers were exposed for how terrible they really were. It was such a difficult time for like the whole country, for truly everyone, and plenty of employers' masks were taken off in more ways than one about allowing their employees to take sick days. This was a big one. People saying that they feel ill or they have symptoms of COVID, and the employer is completely not understanding and forcing them to come into work, because most places in America do not require that you have to give any sick days at all. We're like one of the only countries that has no requirements for maternity or paternity leave. Just the whole system of paid time off in America really sucks. And most places did not give their employees any grace during a global pandemic. Retail and food service employees are well known for not letting their employees sit down and like pressuring them to use their breaks a certain way. Like, don't use the bathroom until it's time for your break, that kind of thing. And while the whole country was calling the workers essential, they were treated absolutely terribly. Customers were treating food service workers worse than ever, being annoying about wearing masks and other COVID restrictions. The employees just didn't deserve to be treated how they were treated. And to top it all off, retail and food service employees are not paid very well. A lot of those employees are on minimum wage, and the fight for raising the minimum wage has been going on for seems like over 10 years now, and not making a ton of progress in that department. I'm sure everyone's seen the study of how minimum wage does not cover a one-bedroom apartment in like any county in the United States, something like that. I'll put It's just been too long of being treated like shit. It's kind of like you can only do that for a certain amount of time before workers finally say enough is enough, and we have reached that time, which led to the Great Resignation. Perhaps even those who were laid off during that time, since a lot of restaurants and retail employees were laid off because of what happened with COVID, found other jobs and found those other jobs, especially if they went to like a white collar type job in an office, found that they didn't have to be screamed at by boomers trying to use their expired coupons. They were allowed to sit down. They were allowed to work remotely. They just overall had a better quality life with this new job. So why would they want to return to working in the food service industry where they were treated so badly and paid so little, especially compared to an office, more corporate type of job? There's definitely a divide of companies in this country who some are keeping up with the times and some think that they can still operate the same way that they always have been. And those are the exact companies who are posting in their window about how no one wants to work anymore. It's the ones who are not adapting to change. You can't pay your workers the same wage that you paid them in 2009. Things don't cost the same as they did in 2009. Gas doesn't cost the same, rent doesn't cost the same, food doesn't cost the same. People are unable to live on these poverty wages, and they have discovered there are other companies who are adapting and changing, paying people living comfortable wages, giving them nice benefits. It has now been brought to light that those companies are out there and you can work for them. I personally made a job change in like the Great Resignation time because I felt that I could be getting paid way more. I felt that I could be working a similar job, but just with better benefits and better pay, and turns out I was right. And for white collar workers, people who work in an office in a corporate setting, even though all of the horrible things the pandemic brought us, it did bring us one thing, which was the realization that a vast majority of corporate office workers are able to work from home successfully without a drop in productivity. And employers did not like this information coming to light. Because now that employees know, hey, I can get my work done at home just as well as I did when I came into the office, they are now refusing to go back to the way things were now that they've experienced the good side of things. And why would you when there are companies who are continuing to allow flexible remote work? If your office is forcing people back to work, you need to expect as an employer that you are not keeping up with the times, you are taking a step backwards, and therefore have to prepare for your employees to leave you for elsewhere that will offer the benefits of remote working. Because now that it's been proven that it can be done, there is not an excuse that makes any sense to an employee. I don't care about your office space that you have rented downtown. That's your problem. That's not the employee's problem. I am not obligated to come back and work for you and maintain my loyalty to you when there are many other jobs out there who will pay me more. I can do about the same job and not have to come into the office. We're not settling for what we know is a worse quality job anymore. I think especially the millennial generation was kind of the last generation that there was an effort to try and sell them on the American dream of get a degree and you'll get a job and be able to make a living and have a comfortable life. Turns out that is like kind of a lot of bullshit for many people, and The percentage of people living paycheck to paycheck is too damn high. We're not willing to listen to those people who were giving us advice anymore because we found out that they were wrong. Getting a degree sets you up for success in some ways, but also failure in other ways because you're signing up to begin your young adult life in a ton of debt. And so in one way you have the education, but in another way you're not financially secure. And getting your job with your fancy degree that everyone told us to get doesn't pay enough. You're still going to be paying off your student loans for most of your adult life. This thought of just work hard and study hard and you'll get a good job and feel comfortable with money has turned out to be a lie. Young Americans are not comfortable with money. We can't afford to have kids. We can't afford to buy houses. We're not being paid enough to live the lives that our parents did or our grandparents did. Working is not something that I think people are generally really excited for and love to do. Small percentages of people love their job. But I think that people don't want to abolish the idea of work entirely. We still want jobs. We're just no longer willing to take bad jobs that are not adapting to future generations. I would really like to know if you've had an experience with leaving a terrible job, and if you're part of the Great Resignation, why you decided you didn't want to work for your previous employer anymore. Tell me your stories. I'd like to hear them, and thanks for watching.